Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, principal with Incite Consulting. I've spent 25 years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now, I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits like yours have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages you to stay the course. Doesn't seem to matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions, nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure that you have a chance to breathe, laugh, smirk, and maybe get excited again about the important work that you do. So today's topic is a mid-year check-in. I'm not exactly sure how it could possibly be true, but we are already more than 6 months into 2024. I have a habit of doing a mid-year check-in somewhere in the 5 to 7 month range each year. It started years ago when I was working in the development field, and summer sometimes offered a chance to slow down a little. I found it really helpful to use this time to evaluate what's been accomplished, determine what must be done by the year end, and to create a realistic path to get there. Notice I said realistic. I still honor this practice today in my consulting practice. So here are 3 takeaways from today's podcast. 1, the importance of actually pausing to conduct a mid-year check-in. Not only with yourself, but with your team if you're fortunate enough to lead one. 2, be realistic about the workload that sits in front of you for the rest of this fiscal year. And 3, make sure you're setting SMART goals for Q3 and Q4 for the remainder of this year. So here we go. This is what a mid-year checkup looks like to me. Number 1, evaluate your current financial health. Revisit your budget. Do you know what your budget is, by the way? And any areas that you might need an adjustment in. Address challenges and areas of concern with your board and appropriate staff. Create a plan to work on funding gaps and reprioritize items if necessary. This isn't a pile on, right? This is an opportunity for you to look at what's been working and what hasn't. And if there are items that really need to rise to the top in order for you to hit goals this year, then some others might need to take a pause. The second part of my kind of mid-year check-in is revisit your strategic plan and priorities. You may be in the middle of a current plan. You may just have some priorities being a newer organization, but pull out that plan. I do hope it's somewhat close by and not tucked away collecting dust. Sometimes that happens. Utilize time at an upcoming board meeting to share an update or goals and strategic priorities. Identify what's been successful and where there needs to be attention focused for the remainder of this year. Don't be afraid to ask for help from your board to accomplish this work. Remember, strategic priorities are shared team goals for your organization. Third piece of this mid-year check-in, communicate impact. Mid-year is a great time to connect with donors, volunteers, and partners to provide an update about the impact your organization has created this year with their help. Gather stories, metrics, and other tools to help you demonstrate how your work is making a difference. Share this news individually with sponsors and through social media, email, and your website. Ideally, you're updating your website often, right? Build excitement about your goals for the year and what it will take to reach them. Number 4, examine upcoming fundraising campaigns. What are your remaining campaigns and fundraising asks for the year? Use this time to set your timeline and ensure any proactive work that can take place happens. Ensure any technology needs are addressed and that systems are in place to process your donations effectively and efficiently. Review your stewardship plan and how you've been connecting with donors. Are you providing meaningful opportunities for them to engage in your work? Be sure that you've been showing your donors love and appreciation throughout the year so that an ask at year end feels comfortable and something they're expecting, not something out of left field. Number 5, review policies and procedures. Yes, they are unsexy and they are so necessary. I hope many of you have had the opportunity to review your bylaws and other policies prior to completing your 990 this past spring. If so, congratulations. If you haven't, put this on the agenda and make sure it's complete by year end. Number 6, in my mid-year check-in, re-engage staff and board members. Mid-year is an excellent time to meet one-on-one board members. Acknowledge and thanking each board member individually for their support this year is critical. Please make sure you're providing specific examples about how they've helped you move your mission forward, and ideally you're capturing those in your CRM. Revisit goals related to board performance and involvement in a way that celebrates what's been accomplished and outlines the work left to do. This is your job to track as an executive director or a leader in your organization. And it's certainly your responsibility to share the successes and challenges with your board chair, because after all, it's the board chair that manages the board, not the executive director. I'd encourage you to make sure that you're re-engaging your staff members as well. Schedule a social lunch to celebrate your team and the hard work you're doing. If you are a small and mighty organization and maybe you're the only staff member, do this important activity with your volunteers as well. Number 7, in the mid-year check-in, revisit your calendar and time management. Some form of time management's got to be on every checklist I create. It's just so important. Take some time to think about your own schedule and the work being done. Go back and look at your own strategic priorities and goals. Are you setting time aside specifically to work on those areas? We have a habit in the sector of being fairly reactive, especially if we've got staff and volunteers that report to us and depend on us. We spend so much time being available for them and hopefully setting them up for success that we forget we're actually accountable and responsible for goals as well. And we need to prioritize our time in order to get that work done. Number 8 on my mid-year check-in list, examine your own growth and development for the year. Have you further developed skills in an area that you were hoping to? If not, what upcoming opportunities exist? Oftentimes fall is time for state nonprofit association conferences. I'd encourage you now, if you haven't already, to make sure that you're signed up for at least one. And ideally, you're on a track of an area that you've identified as important in your professional development. So number 9, I probably should have put this first. How about that vacation time? Have you taken time off this year? And I would ask, if not, why? In all seriousness, right? Get honest about yourself and your current state of mind. If you're feeling burnout, it's time to proactively address that. So if you've evaluated and assessed, right? So those 9 steps, now what? What do we do? Time to get real about what you want and need to accomplish by year's end. A long time ago, I shifted my thoughts around goal setting. I recognize that goals are incredibly important, and sometimes goals need to be adapted and edited along the way. So as you are thinking about the most important work that you, board, your team, needs to accomplish by the end of the year, I would invite you to keep these things in mind. Don't overwhelm yourself with a long list of things to do. Be realistic about your time and what you truly can tackle, again, under the headline of the most important work for your organization. If you've not made progress this year towards an important goal, I want you to be thinking about why that is, right? A candid conversation with board and some staff, depending on how and what role they play, is really important to get to the meat of the matter in terms of why we haven't started to tackle this work yet. Number 2, spend time at board meetings and staff meetings to check in on the status of goals. If things aren't on track, let's figure out why, right? And then let's brainstorm a way to make sure that we can get back on track. If there are challenges, let's be open and honest and work as a team to be able to address them. And number 3, setting SMART goals, right? The old technique is still tried and true, still absolutely relevant for your organization. The big idea here is making sure that any goals that you set are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and are time-bound. Without these things, goals are somewhat arbitrary, and no one is really motivated to be able to achieve them. It's really easy to be able to kick the can down the road. Number 4, just don't set a goal and leave it. Make sure there's action steps and ensure someone's accountable for keeping the project moving forward. If I'm ever checking in with boards or staff, one of their least favorite things are meetings with no action, right? Or discussions with no action. This is your opportunity to make sure that you're actually moving your work forward at your organization. Number 5, right, in terms of moving these things forward, understanding why a goal is important and communicating with board and staff. Connect the dots for the board and team. Why, for example, might a monthly giving goal be important to your organization? Why does it matter? How will it impact your organization's mission? I would also say, how would it impact your cash flow each month? So as we're getting ready to leave today's podcast, I want you to remember our 3 important takeaways for today. The importance of actually pausing long enough to conduct a check-in with yourself, right? And ideally, you're involving board and your team as well. 2, be realistic about your current workload. And 3, setting SMART goals for the remainder of Q3 and Q4 in 2024. Make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. For additional resources and tools, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at inciteconsultinggroup.com. Thanks so much for joining me this week. Take care.